The Philippine Nurses Association of Nevada now brings you Filipinars, news and features about the Filipino-American nursing community and beyond. And now, here's your host, Doris Bauer.
Well, hello and good evening, all you Filipinars listeners and followers. Thank you for tuning in again to our broadcast. I am Doris Bauer, the current president of the PNANV, or the Philippine Nurses Association of Nevada, and your host for Filipinars. Of course, Filipinars is brought to you by PHLV Radio. Well, today we are going to look at college and student loans and how high college loans has affected the people and the professionals in the healthcare community. And we will also look at some of the solutions on how to free the people or you, how to free you up from this huge burden. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, that would be great for me. But before we get to our guests, we would like to give you some updates on the coronavirus COVID-19. As we all know, this virus has spread globally, and the number of people being affected is rising. The spread now is happening in our communities, which makes it difficult to pinpoint the origin of healthcare. So Filipinars would like to give you an educational update direct from CDC and the SNHD, which is the Southern Nevada Health District, on how to protect yourself. Okay, so you all know what the coronavirus is already all about, but basically we would say that the CDC is encouraging all Americans to have to take the following everyday preventative actions. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. Stay home if you are sick. Cover your cough, cover your mouth when you cough or when you sneeze with a tissue, and then throw it away in the trash directly. If you can't or if you don't have a tissue, you can do the etiquette for coughing and sneezing by using your sleeve to cough in your sleeve and sneeze on your sleeve. Okay? Clean and disinfect frequently the touch objects and surfaces like your workstation or the doorknobs. And regularly also wash your hands often with soap and water, at least for about 20 seconds. This is the best protection that you can give to yourselves, is hand washing. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. The CDC does not recommend that people who are just the regular people and who are not infected, they do not recommend that a face mask is to be used to protect yourselves from the respiratory diseases, including COVID-19. So these are some of the precautions, and we hope that also the media is actually requesting that if you have some viral videos or viral information that is not really from the CDC, your local health district, or some reputable websites, please do not share it. It will just incite a lot of panic to people. So thank you. All right. So it is no secret that our society has a student loan crisis. Currently, we have about 1.5 trillion, that's trillion, of outstanding student loan debt, and the default rates are rising and skyrocketing. 75% of the medical school graduates start their career with an average debt of $196,000. That's almost $200,000. Dental school graduates have an average of loan debt of $287,000. Why is that larger? I don't know. Pharmacy school averages about $166,000. Veterinary school averages about $186,000. And 70% of all graduate nurses have a student debt average of about $40,000 to $55,000. And if you pursue a higher education, such as your master's in nursing or your doctorate, the debt goes up higher. Okay, so our guest today, and we're very thrilled to have them, will help us navigate through this issue. And they are from a company called College Loan Freedom. Please welcome Mr. Larry Morrison and IJ Mahayashan, or Maha for short. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it, Doris.
Good. Okay. Well, let's start to introduce Larry a little bit. Larry Morrison is the CEO and founder of the organization College Loan Freedom and the author of an Amazon #1 best-selling book called Student Loan Debt Secrets. Go and buy it. It's really cool. So, Larry, what else can you tell us about yourself?
I'm an Aries, and no, I'm kidding. I started the company about 5 years ago. IJ joined me about 4 years ago, and we've been going across the country teaching about student loan debt to anybody who will listen, but mostly to financial advisors, mortgage brokers, and nurses and teachers about student loans and how to use the programs that are available to them that not a lot of people know how to use.
Okay, so you're in the financial background type guy, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
so
okay.
we do have a financial background, not as extensive as IJ's, but when I discovered this problem and how much it was affecting America and our economy as a whole, but the real working people, I really dove deep into the solutions and been on a mission to get the solutions out to people in a normal, fashion that they can understand.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you started your organization.
Company, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
Very
so
good.
we've been helping people every day for a long time now.
Very good. How about you, IJ? IJ Maha? I can't pronounce your last name for the life of God.
No, you're good. No.
Mahayashan.
A valiant attempt there, young
Okay.
lady. No, it's great. So thanks for having us. My name is IJ Maha. I'm actually the treasurer and /CFO of College Loan Freedom. And my background's pretty extensive in the financial world. I had a Filipino mother who really taught me the value of a dollar, or at that time it was 20 pesos, I believe the exchange rate was. So she really instilled in us financial responsibility and also education. So I really took that to heart, and we met Larry going on 4.5 years ago already.
Wow.
He had a vision, he had a dream of how we can actually help people, and I was intrigued by it. And then we put our heads together, and we're coming up with a workable plan to really alleviate some of this pressure from some people. And it's really about education and really listening to people and what their needs and wants are.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so let's pick your brains a little bit. Okay, do we have any government programs specifically for nurses with student loans?
Yes, actually, there are a handful directly from the Department of Education, and 90% of all student loans are federal. So the Department of Education has dispersed, since 2007, a program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness, which is for anybody who works for a nonprofit. And as you probably know, 80% of all hospitals are nonprofit associations. So right there, 80% of all nurses are going to be able to qualify for the 10-year forgiveness plan. I think that's the biggest one. There are a couple more that are like grants through the NHSC and NHRS, but those are a little bit harder to get, and a little bit you have to be in remote areas, high need areas for those kind of forgiveness plans.
Okay. So how do you qualify for these programs?
So the major thing that you want to do, there's a handful of hoops that have to be jumped through to get to these programs. One is you have to have the right type of loan, which means any loan newer than 2007, definitely after 2010, directly from the Department of Education. It's called a direct loan. Then you also have to have the right type of payment plan, because if you're not in the right type of payment plan on an income-driven plan, there won't be actually any money left over to be saved. So we have to lower the payment to leave money left over after the 10 years to be forgiven. So you have to have the right type of loan, right type of plan, and of course work for a 501c3 or a nonprofit like a Kaiser or even the VA, a government hospital,
Okay.
community hospitals, things like that. The only thing that a nurse wouldn't qualify would be somebody who works for like a clinic or directly for a doctor in like an outpatient type of thing.
So
Right.
you have to work for a 501c3,
C3.
which is a nonprofit.
Correct. Or the government, like a VA
Or
or community
government.
hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, then I guess, are there other types of facilities that you need to work for in order to qualify besides?
Well, it just depends on facility to facility and where they are in the country as far as high need, high risk, those type of things. But for the most part, if it's somebody just kind of looking for a blanket skeleton key, it's just any 501c3. And you got to keep in mind that the biggest hospital network in the nation, Kaiser, is the biggest nonprofit in the nation as well. So there's a lot of health facilities that qualify that most people might not think that they do. It doesn't have to be specifically like a university or anything like that, though that would help. But it could be any of the major hospitals are usually nonprofits.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're using these words, forgiveness, we're using programs and qualifier, but to just give you an idea, there's about 46 million Americans, 44 depending, what number you want to use, who actually have student loans. We know approximately about a third of them work for nonprofits. And what's really amazing, when we say it's loan forgiveness, no matter if your balance at the end of the day is $100, $10,000, $100,000, if you meet all the criteria and perform all the tasks within those criteria, even if you owed $100,000 or $200,000, the federal government will waive that, and that's what we're talking about. So it's an amazing, dynamic program. I think if a lot of people, we know now that some people choose not to go into the medical field because they don't want to take on that debt. Right? I mean, these are
big challenges, really. Big challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, and for a person, say 18, 19, 23, 24, even though they're getting good guidance from either counselors, from universities, from their families and friends, their parents, if they really understood these programs, maybe they can choose to enter this field because the federal government has put up these great, amazing programs out there. So it's not just addressing, quote unquote, the debt, but actually maybe we can affect and help other people to enter into the nursing field or even in the medical, because we do definitely know, sadly, there is a shortage of nurses all over.
It is. And when you accumulate a huge debt like that, you do not want to go to work for like the needed communities, like the rural communities or the challenged communities wherein the pay is really low because you're not going to be able to pay off your student loans, right? And does this work also for non-medical people, non-medical professionals?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, IJ. Sometimes I get lost in the minutia, the technicalities, and so I forget, that a lot of people don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So, yes, it works for everybody who has federal student loans.
Okay.
So I'm talking from, the janitor at a courthouse all the way to a doctor, a lawyer who has student debt. It doesn't matter. As long as they work for a nonprofit 501c3, a government entity, they can qualify for the 10 years forgiveness plan, which means anything that's left over after 10 years is forgiven completely tax-free by the government. Or if they don't qualify, the other 2/3, as IJ was saying, of people will qualify for the 20-year plan. So after 20 years of being in these programs, there is a light at the end of the tunnel where the government will waive the rest.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard a lot about, loan forgiveness. We had some medical students in here a while back in the podcast, and they did say that they do have this loan forgiveness. So I don't think a lot of people understand that. How does that work? What is the process for you to be able to get, a loan forgiveness?
So basically, there's a lot of hoops that need to be jumped through. So the government is essentially giving away free money, quote unquote, in the form of this forgiveness, right?
Okay.
So what they require of you is a portion of your income for a certain amount of time, meaning that they're not super concerned with how much the education cost. Like you were talking about the averages at the beginning of the show, a medical doctor or someone in the profession's up to $200,000 some dollars sometimes. They're not concerned about the cost. They're concerned about the value of that education, meaning what the student is able to go out and do with the education and make in income. So they want a portion of your income for a certain amount of years. And if that amount of income doesn't satisfy the debt, they'll forgive the rest. Does that make sense?
It does. So it's like they garnish your wages type thing, or they deduct it from your wages?
Not a
Is that what
garnishment. Basically, it's kind of like doing your taxes. So every year you'd sit down with the government, quote unquote, and you show them your income, and they say, okay, this is what we would like to have for this payments for this year. And every year you do that, it counts toward the 10 or the 20 years. And so once you reach the end, they said, okay, you've paid this much, this is how much is left, we'll go ahead and take care of the rest and waive it. So the beauty of it is that, as IJ was alluding to, it's not so much about not having enough money, it's about you're paying with blood, sweat, and tears, working for a nonprofit, like you were saying, in the rural areas. You're sacrificing to take that lower pay, and they want to reward you for that because obviously those people are highly needed, and they don't want you to avoid going to those areas that are needed because of the debt, right? So they're saying, look, you do that, we'll do this, so it's a give and take, it's an equal partnership.
Right. And so, even though these are income-based programs, there are other criteria that's taken into effect. So it's not just based on your income, but it's actually based on some other criteria. And one criteria is household or family size. So let's just say, a nurse, his name is John, he makes $50,000. If he's supporting him and his mother, 2 people, or another nurse, we'll call her Maria, if she's making $50,000 and she's in a family of 5 people, well, then their payments will be different because Maria's has a little bit more, quote unquote, responsibilities. So
and expenses, right?
Absolutely. So the federal government is saying, we hear you, but you have to fill out the paperwork, and that's what we assist with people doing. And so it's not just based on income, but also situational. Some other variables, to think that you have to know is actually where you're from. What state are you actually presently living?
Really?
Depending on which state you are, and Larry talked about this, there are other medical programs out there about loans for different school districts, different medical districts, different states. So they take in a lot. It's not just based on income. And they really are saying to the people out there, to these caregivers, people that work in nonprofits, people work for the government, people work in the military, hey, listen, we want to help you as best we can, but we have to understand your situation. So that's the best way to do it. And, that's what we've really dedicated our lives to is helping people with that translation to the government.
So this is what your organization does, right? Gosh, why don't people know this? They should.
I like to say it like this. Going to the Department of Education and doing your own research, talking to the servicers, asking them how to save the most money on your student loans is kind of like going to the IRS and asking them how to save the most money on your taxes.
Because they won't tell you.
Well, it's that they have their own agenda,
Correct.
right? And
Correct.
it's just that you have to take it upon yourself to educate yourself. Or you hire someone like us to help you, just like you would hire a tax professional. Same idea, right?
Okay, right.
It's the answers are there. The easiest equation is with taxes, right? The answers are there, but you have to go through a mind-numbing amount of research to find straight answers and decipher it all. So we've done that for you, right? We've done the heavy lifting. That's why I wrote the book, is to kind of give it all in layman's terms. And of course, we sit down with our clients and talk to our clients and go over their specific situation to see what they qualify for.
Okay, so what you guys were describing a little bit ago is how to use an income-driven repayment to get your lowest payment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, anything else to add to that? I think you've covered it, right?
I mean, I would add one more thing
Yeah.
is I think a lot of people right now, I would say at least 50 to 60% minimum are overpaying on their student loans, if not more.
Yeah.
Because they don't know it exists. And if they do know income-driven repayment exists, they don't know how to get the lowest payment.
Right. So, your audience, I mean, thank you so much, Doris, for having us in this gorgeous studio, by the way.
Yeah,
I can't believe you threw this up in just a week.
Hey, this program has been on the air for a year now.
It's amazing. So let's really look at maybe one particular example of a person that we helped just recently, a person that I helped just recently. She was a young lady, Filipino descent, same as me. And same as a lot of you listeners, I believe. And she was a nurse.
Too.
Yeah, of course. And I think she was on 312s. 312s.
Shifts, you mean?
Yeah,
okay.
3 12-hour shifts. So I believe it was 3 on, and then 4 off, and 3 on, 3 off, right? So there was a rotating. So 3 and 4, 4 and 3, right? I'm sure some nurses, obviously there's 10-hour shifts. Why am I saying that? She's happily married. She has 2 beautiful children. But after her 12-hour shift, the last thing that she wants to do or has the energy to do is really going through the website, the government website, or reading articles and figure out how to deal with these student loans. So it was not for lack of trying, but these waters to navigate are very, very difficult. It's like literally trying to learn the IRS tax code in just a few. And now, this young lady, she was exceptional in the amount of debt. She had about $150,000. So the motivator for her, she was paying roughly about $950 a month. The motivator for her is to reduce that payment so that money could go to somewhere else, right? I mean, I believe. But she just didn't know. And unfortunately, her coworkers didn't know because they were busy with what? Taking care of people. And the energy's there. So when it comes to that, we were able to help this young lady through education, got her payments down to, I believe, right around $300.
Wow, that's significant.
But it's not because... it's not that she's a victim. It's just that her time constraints, she would rather spend time with her family.
Sure.
Right? She has responsibilities. I mean, like laundry builds up,
Well,
so,
that
right?
too. And
I mean, you yourself said you're a little tired today, right?
Tired today because I just came from Phoenix.
There you go, right?
But here again, you have, most people or most nurses out there are, well, we do have bills to pay, and if student loan adds up to that. So if you are on a 3 12-hour shift, well, you got to get another job, to try to help for your, the bills. So they may be per diem elsewhere, and that would take another 2 days out of their 7 days. So, no time.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, absolutely.
That's true.
And that's not just nurses. That's
Yeah.
I mean, there's all different occupations.
Correct.
Graveyard's a best example.
Right. And unfortunately, that's our society these days. Back in the day, we only had a 1-income family. Now you basically have to have a 2 or sometimes 3-income family in order to survive. So,
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, even taking second jobs. I mean, we talk about the low unemployment rate, which is great, but there's also the largest time in American history, I think, and IJ can fact check me on that. But it's we have multiple jobs now. A lot of Americans are taking on second jobs, even if it's just part-time. I was talking to the bank manager right near our office, and she's like, oh yeah, I also got a job managing at Target too, part-time.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like, wow. And she has 2 kids,
Yeah, and my opinion to that is, maybe the unemployment rates are low, but you have to also look at what you're bringing home, so that the amount of money that you're bringing home is not really commensurate to what your expenses are. So you take on another job.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, is that right, Mr. Sales Guru here, marketing?
Yeah. So I'm going to have.
It says on your website.
Yeah. So I'm going to differ on my stance. I'm a little.
Okay.
I'm a little different. But it's if you look at it, it's just since the entering the late 1940s is just that we have more people that participate. So we have more people that participate in the workforce. So if the supply is increased, right, that means there's a more supply of labor, And if you increase the more supply of labor, we've almost, doubled the workforce. What I'm saying is women entering the workforce, right? So that we have a doubling of labor, right? But traditional growth of job rate, so this is increasing amount of jobs compared to the population, is that employers don't have to compensate as much because there's more. Because there's more. Yeah. So it's a direct correlation. So.
I see why they call you the guru.
Oh no, no. Listen,
no, it's true.
I understand.
It is true.
I understand that absolutely. Like more people enter the workforce. We have multiple earners and stuff like that. So,
sure.
But that doesn't solve anything, quote unquote, from the pressures that people feel to pay their bills, to really provide for oneself and provide for one's family. So that doesn't take away, but there's other things than that's going on, like when you started talking about like quote unquote employment and stuff. So
yeah, well, thank you for that, IJ, because economics has not really been my strong suit. So, anyways, okay. Well, does it matter then how you file your taxes if you're married to get the lowest payment?
That's a great question. Especially around tax season, which we're in.
Yeah.
I get this a lot. And the federal government, or specifically the Department of Education, allows for multiple different ways to show income. There's 5 different ways. You can use this year's taxes, last year's taxes, a W-2, a pay stub, or if you're self-employed, you can use a profit and loss statement. Now, the government likes you to use your taxes just because it's easier for them, but it might not be the best reflection of your income, specifically when it comes to married people. So the long-winded answer there is no, you do not have to file your taxes separate in order to exclude the spouse's income from the equation. A lot of people think that you do, but it's just in how you show the income to the government. And so if you're filing joint taxes, then we would just use your pay stubs to exclude your spouse's income, for instance. So long-winded answer, no, you do not need to file your taxes separate. File however you and your tax professional see fit to save money, and we can save money on your income-driven plan regardless.
Okay.
So one of the, this is a very, very common thing. So think about that. If you have 2 incomes, a husband and a wife, and then they both make $50,000, well, they're saying that you have a household of $100,000. But let's just say I'm married, I went to school, those loans are under my Social Security. So no matter what kind of union we may have, legal union, my spouse can't be responsible for my debt.
So your contribution to social is separate.
Exactly.
Right,
so the probably the one best way of understanding this is that taxes are the Internal Revenue Service, even though they may use the similar wording, similar phrases, and that we've come to understand that. But we're dealing with the U.S. Department of Education. So this is a completely different organization altogether within the federal government.
Okay.
And their definitions of income, their definitions of quote unquote household is very different than the IRS. So sometimes we want to do it very fast. Oh, this is what the IRS is. This is exactly what the U.S. Department of Education is. But in fact, it's incorrect. So we go there and we can. And Larry's book is phenomenal. Larry actually goes into it and talks about that. But yeah, so now that we know that they're maybe asking similar questions, the answers we can answer differently. It's the best way for the benefit of the debtor.
Of the debtor.
Yes.
Okay.
Our entire goal is for the borrower, is for our client, right? So our goal is to save as much money as humanly possible within the law legally.
Right.
And so that's how our focus is. When again, the Department of Education's focus might be a little bit different, right? Or someone like IJ said who's going through this fast might not have that same mindset. They want to save money, but they're just trying to get it done the best way possible that they see. So we are very meticulous, and we're going to go through everything and get it done right.
Yeah, I think that
that's great.
The federal website that deals with student loans, I think at last count, they had over 14,000 documents within it. So AKA pages, illustrations. So I don't care how dedicated
fall asleep
you
for
are.
the first 5.
Yeah, more now.
Yeah, they just consolidated the whole last
God.
week. They just put all 3 websites together. So now it's a mess. It's a real big mess.
we are learning every day. And and we're willing to share that knowledge with everyone. So thank you so much for having us here.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah, I
Really
mean,
appreciate it.
we're glad for people like you who have actually gone and read all the stuff and analyzed them. So thank you for
Absolutely.
for coming. But like, say for example, if I was sending money to my family, would that matter?
Absolutely.
Whether
So-
it's overseas or here?
Good question. So the family size definition is open for interpretation within the U.S. Department of Education versus the IRS. This is a great example of what IJ was just talking about, which is, within the IRS, a dependent is very, very clearly
Cut and
spelled
dry,
out.
right.
Cut and
Uh-huh.
dry. But with the Department of Education, family size could be a roommate, could be someone who's sleeping
Really?
on your couch. Yes, because you're sharing housing and you're sharing food. It could be your daughter's boyfriend who's sleeping, on the couch 3 nights a week that you're feeding. If there's a certain amount of parameters that this falls into as far as you're taking care of them financially. And I don't have the exact definition in front of me, but bottom line is if you're taking care of somebody outside of your home more than 50%, so like you're putting your kid through college and you're paying their rent and doing that kind of thing, that could count. Sending money back home, if that's the only money they get, that could count. I'm not saying it does or it doesn't until we look at it, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, more and more we're starting to see not just being money sent away for the care, but I'm sure, especially with the audience that you have, more and more we're seeing more and more Americans supporting and helping their aging parents.
Correct.
So that definitely counts.
So yeah, we have generational
Under one
households
house,
now.
absolutely. People are living
Wow.
longer.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But as we get older and as our parents get older, they are going to have more needs. So, and if we're there to help them with the needs, the federal government is saying, "Hey, this is how we can give a little bit back to you for really supporting, what America's all about, right? Supporting each other."
Yeah, that's very interesting, Larry, what you said too. And Ajay, we had a homeless organization here a while back, and they said that, and we were talking about kids, high schoolers who actually are homeless, and they have this thing called couch surfing. And they go from one place to another in order to, to survive, and they're, with their relatives and whatnot. So do they count? Does that count?
It depends on how long they're couch surfing for at your house, but it's possible that they could. Yeah.
That
And
they
that's a heartbreaker. When I hear kids homeless and they're trying to get themselves through school, I mean, it's hard enough with all the mental focus that you need just to focus on school, and then you talk about where am I going to sleep tonight. That's an undue stress for anybody.
It is a real thing here in Southern Nevada. We have 15,000 homeless high schoolers in Clark County on any given day. Yeah. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's
I don't
crazy.
know. It's crazy, but that's another topic. But anyway, okay. So I have a nephew who's a traveling nurse. So if you are a traveling nurse, does this affect your student loans?
Absolutely. A couple of different things. We work with a lot of traveling nurses as well. And so there's a few different things in that, you want to make sure the best way to take advantage of these government programs that we're talking about for forgiveness, for income-driven repayment, is if it's possible when you're a traveling nurse, is to not have that intermediary company, that kind of headhunter company that you get paid by the third-party company and not the hospital. If it's possible, it'd be best to get paid directly by the hospital, because they'll be the ones to sign your paperwork to say that they're a nonprofit and you're working directly for them. So without getting too deep into the weeds, I know there's some companies that help you find hospitals to go to all over the country, but if it's possible to just go directly to the hospital and work for them. Also, when you're in between contracts, we can renegotiate and recalculate your payment to adjust for the missing money that you're having in between your contracts when you're traveling. So that's a huge bonus right there.
So basically, the recruitment agencies who the placement agencies are not for profit.
Right.
So that That's right.
It throws a monkey wrench into it a little bit. Not to say that we couldn't do the 20-year, and not to say that we couldn't speak to the hospital directly and say, look, could you sign the paperwork and say he's a contractor or she's a contractor? It's possible. I have had it happen, but for ease, it'd be nice if you work straight for the hospital. But if you can't, you can't. But also, even if that's the case, if you're in between contracts, we can definitely recalculate your payment right then and there so that you are taking full advantage of the lowest possible payment.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, politically, I guess on both sides of the aisle, this has been a major problem. They talk about this all the time, your student loans, how are we going to get, through this? How are we going to help the students pay? So what's going on do you have any idea what's going on politically?
I'll jump in first, IJ, and you can take the,
okay.
IJ is a wealth of knowledge in global economics and politics. But let me just jump in first. It's obviously a hot button issue right now.
Yes, it is.
Right. I joke or kind of make fun of the fact that when I first started, 7 years ago, there was maybe an article about student loans every 2 weeks, and now there's 2 a day. And so, a lot for me to keep on top of. But bottom line is, we basically have our current administration who, love them or hate them, it doesn't really matter. I'm just focusing on student loans. They've done a lot of things to try to get rid of these programs that are available for public servants and for in general. And it doesn't look like that's going to stop anytime soon. However, Congress has thwarted the past attempts to get rid of these programs. So I see more of the same happening if we don't have a change in regime. We have today it's funny, it's Wednesday morning after Super Tuesday, and it looks like it's boiled down to Bernie and Biden. Basically. And so Joe Biden doesn't have any stance really on student loans. Basically, we're going to keep the status quo, which doesn't help anybody, but I guess it's more of the devil you know. And then we have Bernie, who's very, very radically the other way, who wants to get rid of all student loan debt. And I think it's good to an extent. Now, when I say that, if we wiped out all student loan debt, it would obviously be a huge boost to all of our economy, right? We'd see it hopefully paid back in other ways within the next 10 years. But in my opinion, and I go into this in the book a little bit, is we have to be aware that student loan debt is actually a symptom of a much larger issue.
Correct.
Which is the inefficiency of a college education versus its cost. And so if that isn't fixed, then we'll be back in this problem. Even if all the debt's forgiven, we'll be back in this situation in the next 5-10 years anyway. So to me, it's an important step. It's an important discussion to have, but not as much as, hey, why is it that 73% of all college graduates don't go into the field that they studied for? Why are we charging $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for an art degree when it's obviously not viable in the marketplace?
Correct.
What do the employers actually want versus what are we teaching them so that they graduates can get a good job and such on and so forth? So I think there's a lot of possibility in our future as far as student loans and change for the better, but I'm just not sure if we're going to see it that way. That's why me and IJ and our team is more in a grassroots movement to spread the word about what's in place now without having to worry about who gets elected. So.
Okay. We might need Bernie and Joe in here.
About this issue. Discussion. Yeah, let's have it.
Well, I maybe I know a couple of people. But let's IJ, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the macro economy. The reason why student loans is being brought up over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, really the last 12 years. And that's because you're looking right around 2008, you're looking at how much? $300 billion, right? $300 billion. And once again, let's dial it back to make sure that everyone understands what $1 billion is. That's 1,000 millions is 1 billion. So this student loan debt was $300 billion, right? So that's a lot of money. But something happened. We want to get people back into the workforce. People want to look at other opportunities. People want to further their education. The government, society has deemed it responsible to help people go through higher educations. That's why these programs are in place. But it's increased to over $1 trillion, 1.4, 1.5 trillion, depending on what number you're using and what day you're using. But $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. So there's 1.4 trillion dollars in debt. That's the reason why. So that number is very, very hard for people to understand how gargantuan that is. So that's the reason why, because it has more of an effect now. Because $1 trillion, like there's not $1 trillion, there's only $4 trillion companies. There's no one even close to even 1/5 of $1 trillion in wealth. So the $1 trillion numbers is very dynamic. So when you hear politicians, when you hear people bringing up $1 trillion, the average person, the average human mind can't even understand that. And that's why you hear people talking about it, because this is something that we should address. But we can never predict the future, but we can definitely see patterns in the past to saying that there could be likelihoods of maybe this repeating. There may be likelihoods of this never happening because it's never happened in the past, or it has happened several times in the past. So that's what we're looking for, pattern recognition. I feel that, sure, we can think about the future, think about what the if, buts, candy, and nuts. But the one thing I can tell your listeners today is that please, 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 either through us or through other sources, take action now. Because if something were to happen that could negatively affect student loans, if they're enrolled in the programs today, tomorrow, they would be grandfathered in.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely,
we're talking about the speed limit in some places on the Autobahn in Germany has no speed limit. So I can go, I believe the fastest I went was, I think 167 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Right? It was ridiculous. It was super, I thought it was a wise thing to do at the time. But now
you lived through it. Now.
Now the Autobahn in some places gets down to roughly 100 kilometers an hour. But the German government, the police officers, they can't arrest me. They can't give me a ticket for something that I did in the past because I'm grandfathered in. So when we say this, and if you are looking at, 50, 60, 85, $100,000 in student loan debt, you really owe it to yourself and you owe it to your loved ones to just try to find more knowledge. And obviously, this is not just a big, giant. Please contact Doris. She has all our information, and we can guide you to look for other places.
We'll show them the info.
But absolutely, take action now, because we don't know what the future holds. But I would love to think it would be very, very good for student loans. I would love to think that, but I'd also not like to think about if it was poor, if something poorly happened in the future because of the landscape in which we look at ourselves in 2020 and 2021. But today, literally, the federal government is saying, if you apply this correctly, $100 billion is access to the American public every year. That's amazing. $100 billion you have access to. So please, 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 just take a little bit of time. I know if you worked a long shift, but definitely lean on your other Filipino nurses, your other professionals out there to maybe look into it, because you may be able to get some quote unquote financial relief.
Well, honestly, that's why we got you here for this program, because there are a lot of not only Filipinos but other people who are in debt up to their their necks, their ears, whatever you call it. And also the problem too is that in healthcare and any other profession, you have to upgrade that education in order to meet the standards of what's going on. So
well, I mean, that's really holding true to really your mission, right? I mean, we're so very, very grateful to be part of your May 2nd continuing education. So thank you.
We'll have you over there. So
so that it's unbelievable, but you're absolutely right. But you're helping your people in your community by further education. So I mean, like, it's really truly an honor and a blessing to be associated with you. So thank you.
Thank you. And for the listeners, that was a plug. The PNANV is going to have an educational seminar on May 2nd, and College Loan Freedom will be there to assist you. And actually, our theme is "Do No Harm," which is, we'll talk about suicide, prevention, bullying, and all that kind of stuff. So more to that coming. So, all right. Well, so going back. So if I apply for these programs, will that hurt my credit score?
No, actually, good question. It will not hurt your credit score to change plans, to reduce payments, to get set up for forgiveness. And we're super excited. We are rolling out a new service for our clients as another value add. We have found a way to remove student loans from credit reports completely, permanently, from all three bureaus, whether they're federal, private, or Parent Plus loans. And so if credit is a hindrance to you as far as your student loans and getting a home or getting a car or hurting your overall credit, we can now get it fully removed. But
for credit
reporting purposes only.
For credit reporting, okay.
Yes, for credit reporting purposes only. We still have to deal with the debt. You still owe the debt.
Sure.
But we still have to use the federal programs. But for credit reporting purposes only, thank you, IJ, we can get it removed, yes.
Okay. Well, so how does your organization, College Loan Freedom, help besides education?
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So we execute the paperwork and the filings and all the due diligence that goes with it. So I'm going to compare this to the IRS and then maybe H&R Block and how we're similar and how we're different. So if you make $18,000 in America, right? If you make $30,000, it's just yourself. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you can just use the easy form yourself that you get at the library, or maybe you can just use TurboTax. I'm not getting credit for it. TurboTax costs you $35, $40, whatever. Sometimes it's free. Mm-hmm. But if you are making maybe $100,000, if you're making $150,000, well, maybe you actually bring it to, say, an H&R Block. Maybe you bring it to a tax professional to do that, because maybe there's something you missed. And instead of, if you missed it, maybe it's $15 or $25 in deductibles, maybe it's $100, maybe it's $200. Maybe you get a tax return of several $1,000s. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, the industry is called document preparation. So they collect the data, right? They give them your W-2s, they find out what deductions you are, and then they apply it into a software package, and then they optimize it. But then these tax professionals will actually also look for other ways to save you money, other ways that's deductible, other situations. So they want to optimize your situation.
I see.
So we are very, very similar. We actually are considered document preparation, and we do the exact same thing, but for the U.S. Department of Education. We will collect the data, right? So how many people do you live with? How much do you make? Do we have to see the W-2, right? How much debt you have? We have to verify that this is your debt. Right? So we have to find out, we have to actually identify you through all the identifying process, which in some cases is an arduous process.
Yes.
But if you only have $5,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 in debt, you could probably manage that over the next few years. I mean, we like to think if you're a nurse, right? If you're right. But in the same scenario, going back to the IRS and tax preparers, if you owe $85,000, if you owe $100,000, if you owe $150,000, let the professionals look it over and see what they come up with, like companies like ours that come up with, because maybe it doesn't save you $15 or $20 a month. Maybe it saves you $600. In this one case with this young nurse, $600 a month. Mm-hmm. That's $600 a month times 12. What are we at? Roughly $7,200. Yeah. What could the average nurse do with an extra $7,200 after tax dollars we're talking about? So
I like the way you think.
A cruise, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. We sit down and we really collect the data, put it through our computer systems, and then we go through the interview process.
Sure.
But unlike H&R Block, unlike tax professionals, we don't just submit it to the federal government, right? Because if you believe this, the U.S. Department of Education, not everything's done electronically. We still have to mail it sometimes.
Sure. Sometimes
they accept faxes. I don't know the last time anyone's had a fax machine. So documents can be lost.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes they need updating. We do all that. So we make it headache-free, hassle-free. And really, to all those nurses out there, this is just something that you'll never have to worry about ever again with an organization like ours. We really take it upon ourselves to bear that burden. And there is a fee for our service. If I saved you $100, I'm going to need a few dollars, right,
Sure.
Doris? But if I save you, in this case, the young lady, I'm probably going to save this nurse approximately $78,000 over the next 9 years.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, that's a real world case, and that's how we differ. So that's the process. We meet with you over the phone or in person. We collect the data, put it through, do the interview process, and then we have to make sure that you are you and the information that you're providing to us. Because we're submitting it to the federal government. We're not submitting it to, we're not getting a $100, gift card or something like that. This is an arduous process.
Sure.
Sometimes it can take up to 90 days, right?
With Parent Plus loans, up to 6 months.
6 months. So
6
this
months.
is but I mean, in that case, I mean, these parents have taken, so that's beautiful, Larry. So not only are we talking about individual borrowers, we're talking about parents or guardians who took it upon themselves to take money out in their name to put their children or their loved ones through school. And we can help with that. And that's honestly one of the most underserved in the student loan industry are parents or guardians. There's so many stories, but one was an aunt that took on a child and she took out loans. And now the aunt has that burden of student loans because she took it out for another person.
Yeah.
So we try to help as many people as we can and as best we can.
Okay. So do you have a minimum amount of loan before somebody can ask for you guys' help?
Sure. Yeah. I think IJ touched on it a little bit, but we'll go in depth. Is a student loan payment and quote unquote the burden of the student loan is going to be smaller with a smaller amount of debt, right? So somebody owes typically, $10,000, they're only going to pay about $100 a month for 10 years. And then on up, $30,300, $100,000, $100,000 a month. So we'd like to keep it above $20,000. So if you have under $20,000 of student loans, usually we would tell you to just kind of pay it. Now, if I've helped people, we've helped people with as low as $2,000 worth of student loans. But it doesn't really behoove us to talk to a professional if you owe under 20, because typically we'll just be like, the payment's $150 a month. Can you afford it? Okay, then go ahead and pay it. Or, it would be like AJ said, a TurboTax scenario. It's like, well, maybe if you really need these programs, look at doing it yourself.
Okay.
So yeah, usually that's our threshold is that. Now, again, we do free consultations to everybody who needs our help. Okay. So it doesn't cost you anything to just talk to us and see and get a little bit of advice. So, but typically we would tell people under 20 to do it themselves.
Very good. Very good. Now, let's pause for a minute and show a video of your company. Okay.
The problem of student loan debt has grown so huge that it's literally ruining millions of lives in America today. People all over this country are giving up finding their dream job. They're putting off buying a home and even delaying marriage and having children because they are paralyzed by their loans. It amazes me when I talk to new clients how long they have struggled before looking for help because they feel that no one is there for them. How did we get to this point where millions of talented young adults are silently suffering and blindly accepting that they must take on a lifelong debt just to get started in the world? Are you seriously going to spend your whole life repaying that debt without looking around for another solution? They don't tell you when you sign the dotted line how difficult it will be to repay it and how much it will affect your future decisions. They don't tell you that the odds are very much against you, even getting a job in your field of study, because most do not. They want to keep you on a never-ending hamster wheel of debt that sucks the hard-earned cash from your pocket each month. If you stop paying and fall into default, they will come for your wages, your tax returns, and even your Social Security income, ensuring that you are a slave to this loan until you die. They will never tell you how to save money on your debt, how to lower your payments or get your loans forgiven, simply because it is not in their best interest to do so. This is why we decided to do something about it. We want to show you how to lower your monthly payments as much as humanly possible. We want to help you get as much of your debt forgiven as possible. This is our job. More than that, it is our mission. Your only job is to look into it. Get the free guidebook we created to explain how the system works. Check out the videos we made, break it all down for you. And if you decide not to waste any more of your hard-earned money on this debt, then reach out to us. You don't have to keep living this way. You can do something about it. Just tell us about your situation and let us do the rest. We can't change how the system works, but we can change your story.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that? Any messages that you haven't told the public?
I mean, like, so we're talking about how we can serve the public, how we help people, but there are people. It's usually maybe 1 in every 5 people that we talk to, sometimes 1 in 6, depending on the week or the year, that have already optimized their loans, right? But it doesn't hurt to get a checkup with us. Right?
Sure.
So there are people it's like, hey, I got, they were asking for $450. I got that payment down to $85. We can just run the numbers, do that. Takes about anywhere from, a 35-minute consultation to, a couple hours. But, we can go through it. And there is that 20%, there is that, 16, 17% that they've already done an amazing job. So there are people out there, but if you ask those people to, who've done it, like, no, congratulations. There's no pressure. It's just, we love the opportunity to talk to people. But sometimes, they've done a great job, and then maybe we find something that goes, this is an extra $10,000 in benefit to you.
Absolutely.
So we're not saying like nurses and doctors, but that's not your core competency, right? I can't even imagine, right, trying to figure out different dosages for pills for myself, just for vitamins, let alone what you ladies do and what you gentlemen do out there in the medical field. So like you said, it doesn't hurt for a checkup, and some people don't need it. You're like, you did a great job. I'm always hiring, by the way. I want to throw that out there. Yeah. You do a great job. Know that, we're always looking for people, but no. Okay. So some people have done a really, really amazing job with their loans. But if you think about that, that's about 80% of the people that we do talk to can use our help.
Great. Thanks for that, IJ. And Larry, you have the last word.
Oh, appreciate that. First of all, again, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. It's amazing to me that, we met, clicked, and we're here to join fans to help more people. My greatest thing is this, to piggyback on what IJ would say in my own words. I've been studying this student loan debt for a long time. And to me, one of the biggest things is the psychology of it, the shame specifically. There's a lot of people out there that think that they need to have it all figured out, that they need to know everything, especially when it comes to a nurse or anybody who's strong-willed and smart. They think they should know everything about everything, and that's just not the case. And the other thing is, some people feel ashamed to even talk about their loans because maybe they're higher than their coworkers, or maybe they don't want to admit that they don't know about how money and debt works. And if that's you, just know that there are resources out there for you. One of the reasons I wrote the book is not only because there's 44 million Americans who need our help and we can't have a phone call with all of them, but for those people out there that are too ashamed to even want to look at their debt or even want to talk about it, you can pick up a book, you can look at it yourself, how to do it yourself. But just know that we are here for you, and we have heard it all, and there is no shame in asking for help from this situation. When you really fully understand how student loans work, bottom line is, you didn't know what you didn't know when you were going to school. You had the best intentions, and you did the best you could with the information you had at the time. And now there's just more information, right? So I see a lot of people who treat this like ostriches with their head in the sand and just don't even want to think about it. And that's one of the worst things you can do. If you don't want to work with us, fine, but just know that there are solutions out there for you. That's the last thing I would say.
That's great. Yeah. That's good. Well, Larry and IJ, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. And I really would like to thank Jenilyn Aktub who actually was the one who contacted me initially.
Yes.
And she is a member of the PNANV. So, hey, Jenilyn, thank you.
Wouldn't be here without you, Jen.
Yeah, that's okay. So thank you so much again. You have given us a lot of information today and a lot of food for thought. So College Loan Freedom has 2 locations. They are in Henderson and in somewhere in the Lake Mead Parkway area.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're over there
Are
in
you there?
Henderson off of Water Street, kind of on Lake
okay.
Mead on Water Street, basically. So
okay.
we're locals here to Las Vegas.
All right.
We did start in San Diego, so I still keep up with our San Diego medical community and
Okay.
things like that. So that's kind of our ghost second location for now.
There's a few Filipinos in San Diego.
I've heard, yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
used to work there. Okay. And they can reach you at phone number?
775-623-7333. 775-623-7333. And our website is collegeloanfreedom.com. On the Contact Us page, you can schedule an appointment for any one of our team, or you can reach out directly. The email is there as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Okay. So, as a parting thought to our listeners and followers, nursing and other healthcare jobs are demanding professions. Many healthcare professionals have big student loans and are not inclined to take jobs that are in underserved communities and in the rural areas where care is much needed. Also, the healthcare industry is evolving rapidly and requires these healthcare professionals to obtain more education in order to best serve the patients. So investing in education is important, but at the same time, we also need to try to provide debt relief for students. We hope that today's broadcast has given you a bit of help on how to handle your student loans, and there is help out there, like from Larry and IJ of College Student Loans. So give us a call if you have any questions. Thank you again for listening. For Filipinars, this is Doris Bauer, your host, signing off for now.
The Philippine Nurses Association of Nevada has just brought you Filipinars, news and features about the Filipino-American nursing community and beyond. Fridays, 7 p.m. on PHLV Radio.